I'm the Bible Charts Guy, and of the 10 commentaries I studied on the book Song of Songs, this is the only one that makes sense. Download this chart in the description below, hit subscribe, and let's talk about what makes Song of Songs so difficult. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I love studying the literary structure and design of the Bible. I believe that seeing the big picture is a fast track to the book's purpose and meaning, and so that's where I start. But here's the problem. No one agrees on how Song of Songs should be arranged. This book is the Old Testament equivalent of 1 John. It is cyclical, it is repetitive, it has no clear linear progression. Let me show you what I mean. When I sit down to study a book of the Bible, I always start by recording the proposed outline of that book in every commentary I can get my hands on. But as you can see, there is wild disagreement among scholars about how this book should be arranged. For example, Kyle and Dillich and Voss, they see two main characters whose love grows for one another, and then they are married. But then there is some kind of conflict which surfaces, which is later resolved. Andrew Hill, on the other hand, he perceives a third character. So we have the Shulamite maiden and her shepherd lover, but then also King Solomon, who tries to woo the Shulamite into his harem. Now, she rejects this proposal and returns to her shepherd lover. Both of these perspectives assume a linear storyline with a beginning, middle, and end, and also clearly discernible characters like Solomon, the Shulamite, and the shepherd. But a third interpretation proposes that Song of Songs is not so much like Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, that is a story, but rather like a collection of his sonnets, an anthology of love poems. Now, this is Tim Mackey's position, who says that Song of Songs is more like a collection of poetry, which creates a male and female persona, but it doesn't have clearly indicated characters, and it also doesn't have a discernible plot line from beginning to end either. Now, Tim Mackey, he studied under Michael Fox at Wisconsin-Madison University, who teaches that Song of Songs does not move in a straight line, but rather is more like a circle, like a repeating circle of seeking and finding, which goes on repeating itself throughout the entire book. Now, I'm persuaded by this, mainly because of the literary repetition in each of the song's 4 cycles, each of which concludes with the same matching refrain. These 4 refrains are at 2-7, 3-5, 5-8, and 8-4. And they conclude 4 separate cycles, each with the exact same words. Take a look at this first refrain in 2-7. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelle or does of the field, that you do not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. Next refrain, 3-5. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem. 5-8. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem. Now, 8-4. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, do not stir up or awaken love. At the very center of these 4 cycles and the concluding warnings is a short description here in chapter 3 of Solomon's wedding. What is this coming up from the wilderness? Behold, it is the litter of Solomon on his wedding day. Now, the whole book is going to end with a brief conclusion here in chapter 8. Now, this structure with Solomon at the center highlights a potential chiasm, which is strengthened by cycles 2 and 3, which have matching dream sequences. So we have a dream here in chapter 3 and another matching dream in chapter 5. Both of which begin with the woman asleep at night, and then she dreams, and she goes out through the city seeking after her lover, but then she is caught by the city watchman. Matching dreams in 3 and 5. Take a look at the parallels between these dreams in 3 and 5. They both begin with the woman asleep at night, and then she begins dreaming, and she seeks for her lover, but found him not. She sought him, but found him not. However, it is the city watchmen who found me as they went about the city. They found me as they went about the city. Again, matching dreams, word for word. Now, I think that these two dreams contribute to the anthology interpretation of the book of Song of Songs, because both of these dreams that are rather confusing, they are not specific events in a storyline, but rather they are psychological portrayals of desire and anxiety and fear of loss. But the strongest argument for the anthology interpretation is the continual repetition of seeking and finding throughout the whole book. Michael Fox says that one such finding is never the end of the story, but rather the lovers go from seeking each other to find each other again and again, but never in a straight line. Now, this seeking and finding is actually repeated 4 times. So 4 times the lovers will praise one another, and then one of them will say to the other, "Come away with me." They will plan their meeting, and then they do in fact meet and consummate their relationship. And this cycle of praise, plan, meet is repeated 4 times in this book. Let's jump into the third cycle and see how this works. So we have 4 cycles of praise, plan, meet, but let's take a look at cycle number 3. It begins with praise. So the lover, that is the man, he says to his beloved, "Your eyes are like doves, your lips like a scarlet thread." And then the lovers are going to plan their rendezvous. He says again, "Come with me from Lebanon, my bride, depart from the peak of Amanah." And then the cycle is going to end with their meeting. The woman says, "Let my beloved come to his garden and eat its choicest fruits." And then he says, "I came to my garden, my sister, my bride. I drank my wine and was drunk with love." But there's another layer to this book's poetry. Each of the book's 4 cycles has its own carefully crafted literary design. The first one is composed of 7 speeches between the lover and his beloved. And these speeches alternate, lover, beloved, and it appears as if there's a loose chiastic structure holding all 7 together. Take a look at the chiasm here in cycle 1. So in both the opening and closing speech, the woman is going to say that her lover brought her into his chambers. "My lover brought me into his banqueting house." And now the man is going to speak and he will praise the uniqueness of the woman. He will say that "you are like a mare among all of Pharaoh's chariots." You think that you're a lily among the valleys. No, you're not. He says, "You are a lily among brambles." And now back to the woman. And she is going to twice make this allusion to their couch. She says that the king was on his couch and our couch is green. And then here at the center, the man is going to have these double "you are beautiful" statements, which is reciprocated by the woman who also says "you are beautiful," for a trifecta of beauty here at the center of cycle 1. Now, this same level of literary sophistication continues for the rest of the book in cycles 2, 3, and 4. Honestly, it's pretty amazing. But what does it all mean? I mean, at the literal level, Song of Songs is a celebration of the divine gift of love. Delight and desire are good things, and they are elevated here within the covenant context of marriage. And that is why it's repeated here 4 times, "Do not stir up or awaken love until it pleases." That is outside of the context of marriage. But I also think that these 4 cycles of seeking and finding are signaling to us that a husband and wife must continually seek one another and always be in this repeating cycle of falling in love with each other again and again. But what is the role of Solomon here at the center of the book? Well, if you slow down and you read through Song of Solomon line by line, you will find over 30 direct literary links to another book of Solomon, the Proverbs of Solomon, specifically to the poems of Lady Wisdom in the first 9 chapters of that book. Now, this is the messianic reading of Song of Songs. It could be that this book, Song of Songs, is teaching that Israel needs a greater son of David who will pursue Lady Wisdom and therefore rule his kingdom by the fear of the Lord. Only then, Song of Songs is teaching, will we return to the garden, a garden which is featured so prominently in this book. Another heroine with connections to Lady Wisdom and the Proverbs 31 woman is the Moabite Ruth. If you want to see how the genealogy in the final chapter of that book points all the way back to the promise of a snake crusher in Genesis 3:15, you should check out this next video.